All right, so both Britain and Australia are trying to come up with ways to make professional sports fair. And I emphasize that this is dealing with professional sports, not intramural sports or the other types of sports that have transphobes seriously foaming at the mouth because, oh my god. I if you were here for my video about that grandfather in Canada who went after this 9-year-old girl because she looked like a boy because she had a pixie cut. So, we're not dealing with that now. That was just ridiculous. But this is a legit issue. We're talking about professional athletes and how do we keep things fair for everybody. So, Britain's Cycling Time Trials, or CTT, banned transgender women from competing in the female category competitive events on Wednesday, while renaming the men's category to Open to promote inclusivity and fair competition in the sport. Okay, fine. So far, so good. Cyclists hoping to compete in the female category must be assigned female at birth, cannot have undergone male puberty, and must have a testosterone level below 2.5. I don't know what NMOL per liter is, but testosterone doping is a thing, so that is considered a performance enhancing drug, so that's fine that they're testing for testosterone. They do it for men too, so it's not like they're doing this because they just realized trans women are a thing. They've been doing this for men for a long time. Now, if you are assigned female at birth, but okay, so if you're a trans woman, what if you never go through male puberty? What if you're on puberty blockers? And then you go through the requisite, whether it be surgeries or just hormone treatments or whatever, but you never go through male puberty. Even if you never go through male puberty, based on this list, you still cannot compete with women. So that might be a bit of an oversight. I understand what they're trying to do, but that, if male puberty is that big of a deal, which studies have shown it is, well, what if you never go through it? The way I'm reading this is not you must be assigned female at birth or cannot have gone through male puberty. You have to be both. So those trans women who are currently on puberty blockers, until they're old enough to make those permanent changes, like going on hormones, like having surgeries if they want the surgeries or can afford the surgeries. So they never go through male puberty. So why shouldn't they be allowed to compete? If male puberty is the issue because of the testosterone levels, well, puberty blockers took care of that. So they might want to revisit these requirements later on once we're dealing with trans athletes who've never gone through male puberty, because that's a thing now. This was fine when puberty blockers weren't being used, but now that they're being used more and more, even though there are plenty of people who are trying to prevent puberty blockers from being used because they're asshats. But I would, now granted, this isn't going to be a huge problem because there aren't going to be a huge influx of professional trans athletes, but still, that's something to consider. What if you're dealing with a trans woman who never went through male puberty? Why should she be excluded? In theory, she has zero advantage over cis women because she didn't go through the male puberty either. So, let's see, what else do we have here? The newly formed open category will be for male athletes, transgender women and men, and non-binary individuals. Okay. I guess this also includes intersex people, because I don't know how prevalent that is either, but you know, what if you're an intersex person who never went through male puberty, but you don't identify as male, or you do identify as male? There's, like I said, there's a bit of an oversight here. What about intersex people who never went through male puberty? I mean, but they were not necessarily assigned female at birth because they're intersex. I mean, this is missing a little bit, but, good on them for, trying to make things fair. And again, I don't know how many intersex individuals there are competing in professional sports, but this is a good start. I'm not going to criticize too much, but I think they're missing some stuff. So the board of CTT will create a new body, a gender tribunal, to decide gender eligibility issues and provide sensitive guidance to those affected by this policy, said CTT, the governing body for time trials in England, Scotland, and Wales. CTT's decision comes weeks after British Cycling announced a similar policy. Here at CTT, we're committed to the promotion of inclusivity and a fair competition in sport. This decision underpins such values and shows our collective support for women's sports, CTT Chair Andrea Parrish said. The International Cycling Union, or UCI, allows transgender women with reduced testosterone to take part in female events. The ruling body oh my God, bad English. The ruling body is due to announce results of a policy review in August. So, the International Cycling Union understands that testosterone is the biggie. And they've been testing for testosterone for a long time. I think at least 30 years, I think. So I'm glad that they are trying to keep this fair so people can't whine about the inherent unfairness. Maybe they'll also adopt a policy about male puberty if it's because like I said, there are certain certain studies that show how there are permanent effects from male puberty, but my understanding is that the big issue is testosterone. And if you don't have the high levels of testosterone, I fail to see how you have an inherent advantage over other women. Oh, and for those who wonder what you mean by reduced testosterone, I hate to break it to the people who are so dead set against women having any testosterone, women have testosterone. They don't have as much as men, obviously, but they do have some testosterone in their bodies. So to accuse women of having any, and that just makes them trans or something, no, no. This is, women do have some levels of testosterone. That's just a thing. So, that is that article. So, let us move to the next article, which is out of Australia. So, Australia recommends testosterone limits for transgender athletes in elite female sport. Again, that sounds perfectly reasonable because testosterone has been shown to be the culprit that increases muscle mass and is what gives men the advantage, the physical advantage over women. So that works. Australia's Peak Sports Authority has recommended testosterone limits for transgender athletes seeking to compete in elite female competitions as part of guidelines on inclusion released on Friday. The non-compulsory guidelines issued by the Australian Sports Commission, or ASC, allows for national federations to determine that testosterone suppression is required for eligibility to compete in female categories. Again, that sounds reasonable. The Transgender and Gender Diverse Inclusion Guidelines for HP, or High Performance Sport, recommends transgender athletes have plasma testosterone levels of less than 2.5 nanomoles per liter. Oh, so that's what that meant. Okay. For 2 years prior to competition. However, sports have flexibility to set their own thresholds according to physiological requirements. Sports that are not explosive, power-based, or aerobic may consider that the appropriate range for the sport exceeds AIS recommended guidelines, said the framework. So they accept that, not all sports are sports where men will have an obvious advantage. So, the Australian Institute of Sport, or AIS, is the high performance arm within the ASC. Transgender inclusion in female competition has become one of the most contentious and divisive issues in sport, to the point of absolute madness. A number of global sports federations have banned transgender women from elite female competitions, including athletics, which is track and field for us Americans, rugby union, and rugby league, citing fairness and safety concerns. Other sports have set testosterone limits similar to Australia's new guidelines. Some scientists have questioned whether testosterone limits are sufficient to ensure fair competition, saying transgender women athletes who have gone through male puberty may retain physical advantages even after hormone suppression, which I which I was kind of implying it when I was talking about the requirements for the British cycling trials. That, that there are studies that say that there are permanent effects of male puberty, even if you go on hormones, on opposite sex hormones. So yeah. So, but again, what if you, which is why I said that there are there are trans women who were not assigned female at birth, who haven't gone through male puberty. They should have the opportunity to compete with women, because if male puberty is the issue, well, there is no issue then. Advocates for transgender inclusion argue the process of transition decreases advantage considerably, and that physical differences between athletes mean there is never truly a level playing field. Which they're implying that everyone is physically different. that there are women who are just naturally stronger than other women, so have an advantage over those women. Well, that could be taken to a ridiculous extreme that, well, nobody can compete against anybody because there's always going to be someone who's better at something for reasons. So, Australia's guidelines come months after the National Basketball Federation rejected transgender athletes' application to play in a semi-professional league, drawing criticisms from LGBTI groups. Eligibility requirements for transgender athletes in elite female competition vary broadly in Australian sports. Now, about that criticism from LGBTI groups, it is semi-professional. We aren't talking about just intramural sports, just hanging out with friends. And I don't know what their requirements were that caused this, but obviously what Australia is doing now is the response. The Australian Football League, the governing body of Australian rules football, requires testosterone levels to be less than 5 nanomoles per liter for 2 years before competition while considering height, weight, and other factors. Hold it. Volleyball players would like a word. Volleyball players, basketball players, they would like a word. I mean, what if you're just naturally a tall woman? This could affect cis women if we're taking, height, weight, and other factors into consideration. This could ban cis women potentially. So maybe that's one of the other considerations. Okay, you're a cis woman, but you have all these other factors, so yeah, like I said, this could potentially get messy, but this is definitely a good starting point. All right. Cricket Australia has a cap of 10 nanomoles per liter for 1 year before competition. So apparently every sport has their own threshold for testosterone, which I guess makes sense because it depends on how physical the competition is. Because let's face it, the more physically active, the naturally stronger women are going to go into sports that play to that. So that potentially means that they have more testosterone than other women. And I'm talking about cis women now. So it makes sense that there would be different rules for testosterone levels. But that's all I have for these two articles. And yeah, it's just unfortunately a very messy situation, and there are going to be trans women who unfortunately are going to be left out in the cold because they fall in this gray area, and it sucks. But at the same time, you want to make sure that sport is fair for everybody. And unfortunately, they're just going to be, I've heard of athletes, cis athletes, who were banned from certain sports because their testosterone level was too high. And this is cis men. And it's just that their testosterone's naturally that high. So yeah, this affects cis men too. This isn't just affecting trans women. So, but I do appreciate that they're trying to take a scientific approach and try to make the sport fair. Like I said, they seem to be missing a couple of things, but hopefully they'll keep tweaking it and they'll get better at keeping sports fair and letting people who should be allowed to compete with other women be allowed to compete. So that's all I have on this issue for now, and I will see you guys in the next video.